Welcome to myFace, myStory, Voices from the Craniofacial Community, with your host, Dina Zuckerberg.
Hello, and welcome to myFace, myStory, Voices from the Craniofacial Community. I'm Dina Zuckerberg, your host and Director of Family Programs at myFace. Like many of you listening, I have a craniofacial difference. I was born with a cleft lip, a hearing loss, and no vision in my left eye. myFace, myStory is about people like us being seen and heard, about sharing stories within the craniofacial community and with others. This podcast episode is made possible through support from the Integra Foundation, committed to improving lives. By the way, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening through Apple Podcasts, click subscribe now and we'll keep you updated on future episodes so you never miss out. And if you're a fan of myFace, myStory, please rate and review the program on Apple Podcasts so we can get our message of inclusivity and empowerment to more people. Today, I am joined by Amy Schefer and her daughter, Lazer. Amy is a passionate advocate for the craniofacial and rare disease communities. She is Lazer's mom and the director of Advocate Angel, an organization that helps guide families through the medical maze. She shares her intense journey as medical mom, navigating with Lazer through dozens of surgeries and challenges, to engaging in pioneering research efforts and advocating tirelessly in one-on-one family assistance endeavors and in legislative action. Lazer is a 20-year-old patient advocate and public speaker with golden heart syndrome. She has appeared on the TLC series 2 in a Million, A Face Like Mine. She has also appeared on numerous podcasts and radio interviews and has moderated panel discussions at Seattle Children's Hospital. Welcome, Amy and Lazer. I really look forward to our conversations. Hi.
Hi. Oh, us too.
Yes. So, Amy, can you share the early days of your journey with Lazer's diagnosis and what were some of the initial challenges you faced as a mother navigating the medical care system and her care?
Well, we're country folk, and one of the biggest challenges that we had is we were at a teeny tiny hospital. Nobody had ever heard of golden heart. We had a great emergency room, NICU doctor who stayed up all night trying to figure out what condition this may be. But the fact that we were farther away from the central areas where medical care happened made it more difficult. And then early on, we also, we knew we needed to get to a craniofacial team.
Right.
The team that was assigned to us through our insurance was a not well-known team. They met once every 3 months. They brought somebody in who said, who was a professor emeritus, who said, wow, this is really, you won't find a kid like this very often. And that was kind of like their amassed wisdom. And it was hard to get referred to the top team in the state. And the top team in the state was in disarray. Right. They kept losing their funding. So one of the biggest challenges for me, aside from not knowing ahead of time, despite all the ultrasounds and stuff, that Lazer was going to be different, one of the biggest challenges was just getting situated in the right medical team so that the quality of care could be better than what we started with.
Right. And so you did not know, and was there anybody else in your family that you knew of that had golden heart, or no? So this was a total surprise to you.
Yeah. And luckily, my dad was a psychiatrist, so he went to medical school. So he asked all of his med school buddies, what do you do in a
Mm-hmm.
case like this, and they said, find a craniofacial team. Um, that was pure luck
Right.
and not something that most people have. And, some of the reason I just became an advocate is because the information that families have access to is so scattershot.
Right.
And if you don't have that information, your results are way different. And not only that information, but lots of other kinds of information. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, we also just didn't have really great um, facilities. We didn't have great home health agencies. We didn't have, it was hard. I had to learn how to fire people who were coming to take care of Lazer who,
Right.
you know, didn't do as good a job as they needed to.
Right.
Lazer had a trach and a G tube at the beginning and other things, and it, you know, substandard care doesn't cut it. So
Right.
um, there are a lot of challenges, and you know, common sense. You would think, okay, when any person is born, the medical system will wrap you in its arms, and all will be
Mm-hmm.
well. You'll know what to do. You'll be speaking with the right people, and it's kind of no. You actually have to take some action on behalf of yourself and your family.
Right.
Get that. So
So, Laser, growing up with Golden Horse Syndrome, what were some of the most significant challenges you encountered, and how did you find the strength to overcome them?
I have a couple different answers for this, but
Mhm.
one is, which is a very common answer, is just learning how to deal with people's reactions to you. Um,
Right.
and I had a couple of like really, really hard moments that triggered like a whole bunch of years worth of not wanting to be seen in public or like trying to literally hide the left side of my face.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I consider to be the more different side. Then another one of the harder things has been dealing with my face changing so many times.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I get used to the way my face looks, and then I have another surgery that is ultimately, of course, for the betterment of my health. Or at this point, I'm just now at the point where uh, I'm getting surgeries to more even out my appearance as well.
Right.
Um, but learning to love each face that has come into my life over over the 20 years has been one of the more uh, interesting challenges, let's say. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the main things that has like helped with that, honestly, is just taking time.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot of time for me to uh, really start to like listen when my mom and like my other close family members would say that, look, you really are beautiful. And I would always brush it off like, oh, no, you're just saying that. You're my parents. Come on.
Right.
Shush.
Right. Right.
Um, One thing that ended up really helping with that was I got really bored in 2020, quarantine time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was on TikTok a little bit before that, but uh, I started just posting a whole bunch of different like content regarding what it's like to live with a facial difference, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them were more funny, but some of them were really like expressing how it feels to look different. Even though I have gotten quite a few like nasty comments over the over the
Mm-hmm.
years. Just sharing that part of myself really helped ground uh ground me in the sense that in the knowing that I am different, and that's not a bad thing,
Right.
and different is beautiful.
Exactly. When you
Yeah.
talk about Laser, about having surgeries and your face changing each time you have surgery is something that I've heard quite often from individuals in the craniofacial community. So I don't think you're alone in that. So you both have touched on it, but advocacy has become a significant part of both your lives. And so I'm wondering what motivated you to turn your personal experiences into a mission to support others in the craniofacial and rare disease communities.
Well, I can say for me, naturally, people started referring people to me because I had bushwhacked a path through the jungle with a machete, and they were like, "Talk to this lady; she figured it out." So I naturally was doing that, and I was passionate about it, and even to the extent where I had some medical professionals referring people to me because I could say things they couldn't say. Like in this previous state we lived, G-tube food. Once a kid had a G-tube, the doctor was legally responsible for failure to thrive. I'm doing little quote marks off the screen. And failure to thrive in Lazer's case was they were putting formula through the G-tube that was a bunch of chemicals, and that Lazer's body didn't like that. It's kind of a simple matter. But the doctor had responsibility. Like, in other words, if you have a non-G-tube food kid, you can feed them, Velveeta and Cheetos and, gummy bears and nothing else. And nobody gets in between you. Not that you should, but if you take your kid off of the prescribed G-tube food, you can have your kid taken away in the state that I was living in. So it started at a very young age because this medical person from DSHS couldn't tell people to use goat milk or use the breast milk bank, so she'd say, talk to Amy. So because that's how Lazer began thriving, just having natural food. So I worked out a special thing with the dietitian to basically look the other way for a couple of weeks. And if Lazer's weight went up, then we could, have her look our way again. These are the kinds of things. Of course, I would want to help anybody that was, right after me in the same shoes that I was in, and I think parents are just like that, or anybody that's gone through difficulty. If you actually found your way through the woods, you want to help somebody because you know what it was like, and especially how long it took you. Wouldn't it be nice if the next person didn't have to spend that much sweat or that much time, with tough diagnoses? The longer something takes, the tighter the circumstances you might be in. So I love that about craniofacial parents and rare disease parents, and we're all ready to help, and that was my motivation.
Yeah. And Lazer, do you have anything to add to that about your motivation and why you?
Yeah. When I was younger, I had never met anyone with the same condition, golden heart syndrome. Up until I was 12, I got invited on that TLC show. And so I always grew up feeling very, very, very different, and not really having anyone else who was in the kind of exact same boat. The other part is I have not seen a whole bunch of facial differences out in like the media, in the general media, if it's not to like poke fun at them, or if it's not like a villain in a movie or something like that. And so a lot of my advocating just came from me realizing like, oh wow, I'm not the only one here. I'd also love to see more people like me, you know, just out in the world, thriving, doing their life. And I mean, that's what got me into it.
Right. What kind of feedback have you gotten since sharing your story and appearing on TLC's Two in a Million? How has that, what has been the feedback? How has that changed you or impacted you?
Honestly, just meeting someone for the first time with the same facial difference was like a godsend.
Yeah,
And really made me realize that, oh, there are a lot of other people that also have this issue. It's just not that common, right? So it makes sense.
right.
But my mom actually would probably have a better answer because I don't really know exactly the changes that I went through
Okay.
right after, but I do know that a whole lot of people were just sharing about their own kids
Right.
seeing me on the TV show, or I had a lot of families trying to get in contact with me, and that was really lovely. And also at the time, I got overwhelmed and then kind of
Right.
flicked, which is I don't really like that I did that, but I was 12.
Yeah, I always
But
say there's power in the shared story and knowing you're not alone. And I just feel like what you just shared, that is so true. I mean, when you realize you're not the only one who has golden hair or been through experiences or had lots of surgeries, I think there's a comfort in that when you know you're not the only one, and the day you realize that. So,
You know, and that's the thing with craniofacial differences is that laser always looked different, and what people were responding because of that. And it is super isolating if there's nobody like you and you
yeah,
never met somebody like you. And that was the whole premise of the 2 in a Million series. It was a whole series. What if you had a condition so rare that you had never met another person like you? So, and the series was like these two people who had this condition meeting for the first time. Some of them were adults. So I think, you know, what I noticed after the show also is you had been singled out. That's easy to do if you have a craniofacial condition. You were singled out, you were bullied because of that. And at that time, more like when you were 11, you started like looking for where the bully was. Like it was your first understanding that because your school, everybody loved you, you knew the people well, you had sort of, you knew you were different, but you didn't have a sense that could be dangerous to you. Then after you were bullied, it was like, oh, where's the danger? You know, where's the danger? And potentially anybody could dislike me. And then you did that really cool bullying video for Pacer with Austin on the show. And a lot of people were like, wow, you guys are courageous. That was awesome. Tell me more. And then you kind of flipped. It was like, oh, there also could be a lot of people out there that really appreciate me because I'm articulate. And it really made a big difference. And then, so that's what I noticed happened.
right.
It was a kind of a weird lightning bolt from heaven to be like invited onto a show. And then even it was, you know, international. So, you know, a girl in Norway with a pony was like, I have golden hair and this is my pony. You want to come ride the pony? Like it was wildly, it was a wild experience.
Right. So, Amy, you shared a little bit about Advocate Angel, but can you tell us why you started Advocate Angel and the work you're doing or you want to do to navigate the complex medical maze? I know it is complex, and what inspired you to start Advocate Angel?
Yeah, it's basically, you know, I always found that when I was super up against it and had no options and didn't know what I was going to do and was about to lose it, an angel would jump out of the woodwork. And I mean, somebody in Walmart would go, I got you, blah, blah, blah. Like, and you're like, what? So when that happens, it is so profound and there's no way to pay it back. You just want to pay it forward. So I think our family went through something really different because we moved in order to get the best craniofacial care, because even though eventually we got referred out of the small town we were in to the major city, then out of that particular office to the top office, that the top craniofacial team was falling apart. We went and we got bad advice there, basically. Said they wouldn't do any surgery for Lazer until Lazer was 6, and Lazer couldn't. Lazer had a trach and other things, so Lazer was always a very articulate person in sign language, right? And I knew as a teacher that Lazer not being able to communicate directly with somebody by mouth, but needing to sign to me and have me sign to somebody else, that would really not be good for Lazer. So then we got another input that, we've been doing these surgeries much younger than Lazer. Absolutely, Lazer can have a surgery to advance the jaw and remove the trach. And that required us eventually moving states. So how that plays into Advocate Angel is I know how, like, we have pretty much like 40% better across the board experience with everything. And being now exposed to other families that haven't known how to advocate or haven't had the team that we got or haven't had certain blessings that we've had, we've seen the outcomes be really different. So I'm pretty much on fire about it. There's 2 things that you need to make a good decision. You need enough information, and typically it's really hard to get good information on, oh, that's funny. And you need heart and courage, and that means connecting to people in a community. And so I just thought if I could help families get good information and expand their heart and courage, that would mean the world to me.
Yeah. And no doubt that this probably will help a lot of people. Because I think you're right. I think when you have a child with a craniofacial difference, and if you're not in a major city, it can be really hard to know how to navigate, and you feel so alone in that. I think as a parent, you just feel like, what do I do? And I don't know about you, but I mean, certainly my parents didn't have access to the internet and all these things and Facebook or any of that. Yeah, right?
Have that.
We didn't even know about the Facebook support groups until I was 12, I think.
Literally, that lady from the show was trying to contact me on Facebook.
Oh, wow.
I didn't use Facebook. And plus, I thought this was somebody scamming, like they were going to sell me a bridge to buy. Like, we're the TV show with TLC. I'm like, yeah, right. So they almost packed up the offer. Like, literally, they were going, well, we're not going to film this episode. We didn't get the person. They never replied. And then I don't know, somehow they reached me.
Right. So to our audience, I hope that you're enjoying this episode of myFace, myStory. Whether it's your first time joining us or you've been with us since the beginning, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube and Apple Podcast channel and sign up for our mailing list at myface.org/mystory. So, Amy, as a mother, how do you balance being an advocate with the emotional and physical demands of caring for Lazer and managing all her medical needs. And I mean, although Lazer, you are now 20, so I'm gathering you probably are able to now make a lot of your own decisions, right?
Yeah, that's a lot more true. When I like reached 16, she was starting to go, now here you do this, I'll still do this. Now you do this and this, and I'll do this. And
Right.
over
Right,
the
right,
years, it's been
Yeah.
now you get to do most of it,
Yeah.
so which
That's
I'm happy for.
Yeah, that's actually one of the real timing things of starting Advocate Angel, because I've always advocated. People have
mhm,
always sent people to me, but now, Lazer is thriving and driving their own 3-trailer semi. I mean, it's not a
right,
small thing to transfer all that stuff over, and so I am in celebration of all of that and have more bandwidth to share with other families.
right. And Amy, I think you are involved in also some research that's being done, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need to share about that? Yeah.
Yeah. I've been involved with the CARE project, which is a study of craniofacial microsomia. It's a psychosocial study. So we've interviewed, it's an NIH grant. We've across 5 years, we've interviewed caretakers, patients, and medical professionals in a bunch of different ways about craniofacial microsomia. Um, Rare conditions are very hard to study because amassing data, now that the internet is more impactful, it's easier. But
Mhm,
amassing data used to mean that you'd have to fly people all to one city, and even finding all those people is hard with the rare
right.
conditions. So this is one of the first studies of craniofacial microsomia, and we've done a lot of published stuff about the what the parents say are the hardest things, and so
Mhm,
that they can we can take this information to providers and train them, you know. So some of the first public stuff was about parents' comments that it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's so much going on. And
right.
that's not something that, providers have known. So I'm involved with that research. I'm also involved with the Every Life Foundation, RDLA, which is Rare Diseases Legislative Action. There's a
Okay.
lot of crossover from craniofacial to rare diseases. There are many craniofacial conditions that are rare, like
Mhm,
golden are. So RDLA pairs advocates with legislators to bring certain topics that are being considered in the legislature to bring a personal voice to that. So I just recently talked with my state representative and state senator about a piece of legislation that's going to allow Medicaid doctors to sign up for multiple states.
okay.
Um, that's really relevant because, and my personal story that adds good material for them so that they get why to do that is I had the audacity to convince the top doctor for the surgery that Lazer got on their ear and hearing aid post to get out of his exclusive contract at Cedar Sinai, um, get a license to practice medicine in Washington and surgery privileges at Seattle Children's. And he agreed to fly himself out on his own dime and do
Wow.
the surgery with Lazer's doctor to train her. Um, who in their right mind would ask, like I was shaking in my boots for a long time, but I did not see another way to do it. And the
Right.
point is, nobody should have to do that. And he shouldn't have had to, bless his heart and soul forever, um,
Right.
agree to be that gracious. And um, I have a particular knack for stuff that another parent shouldn't even be expected to have. So anyway,
Right.
I was able to say all that to the legislators, and RDLA coordinates efforts like that that hopefully can give back to other families again in our
Yeah,
circumstance
it's
in
great.
the past. Yeah.
So, Lazer, what advice would you give to other young people living with a craniofacial rare condition who might be struggling with their own self-acceptance?
It's a little hard to say because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I would definitely say is join one of the support groups that like myFace hosts, or Faces, which is one of the foundations that was really helpful to my family,
Mm-hmm.
because they have a whole bunch of resources on connecting with others with facial differences, with your exact condition if you want that, or but that was one thing that I didn't necessarily have a whole lot of growing up. But the moment that I met another person like me that had the same experiences in a lot of areas, that opened the door in the sense of, oh wow, no, I'm not alone, and having these experiences, and just because I am different, it's not a bad thing, and I think that's one of the best resources you can make use of, as well as just talking, sharing yourself, even when it's hardest to be who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's the most important too.
Mm-hmm. I like that. It's
That's
true.
beautiful. Yeah.
And Amy, what advice do you have for parents who have just learned that their child has a facial difference?
Well, I think now that like for example, my face wasn't out and about in the public
Right.
sphere when Lazer was little. Yay! Now my face is there, and I'm constantly referring people to my face because there are just so many resources.
Right.
Um,
Thank you.
uh, there's like the ACPA, the American Cleft Palate and Craniofacial Association. They have vetted the craniofacial teams, and you want to get to a vetted craniofacial team, especially if you have a more, if your child has a more serious involvement. You really want the top notch, pre-established team that you can get. The other thing is social media is really great. There are a lot of Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I have a hack for that though, and it's an important one. I
Mm-hmm.
see families getting on the social media groups, and you're going to have as a parent the uncomfortable experience of taking advice from a doctor who's never been in your shoes, and you also are going to have access to parents. And you have to understand that even though they've been in your shoes in some ways, they haven't been in your shoes because they
Mm-hmm.
don't know your exact kid. And
Yeah.
I see people asking other parents, like, should I get the whatever epibulbar dermoid surgery? And it's like, well, Lazer's epibulbar dermoid is not obstructing vision. It's to the side of the eye, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not very big. So if I answer that, and I'm sort of like just answering from what I know, I'd say, no, don't get it.
Right.
Our doctor
Right.
said no. But like if it's occluding the eye and
Right.
it's getting in whatever, it's
Blocking vision.
blocking vision, right?
Right.
Um, then you should. So you have to sort of draw on your community and draw on your doctors, and
Right.
really be with the decisions thoroughly. You have to understand that nobody is in your shoes. It's kind of
Right.
a lonely road. Um, and even with Advocate Angel, I'm reaching a hand. I want to help. And like I do what is called a tiny challenge, and that is like a few sessions where I'm just listening, learning about you, because every person in the situation, maybe you're not in a rural area, you're in a city. Maybe you don't have a good craniofacial team near you. Maybe you do.
Right.
Maybe your Medicaid doesn't pay for stuff that my Medicaid does, because every state is different. There's so many particularities. So get with people that you trust that can help you. And to second what you said, the support groups, that's the other thing I'm referring people to all the time. You guys as support groups, oh my goodness. Art therapy, are you kidding me? Like, just being able to be around community,
Right.
it's priceless.
Yeah, I really believe that having that community is so important because, again, if you know you're not alone and somebody helps you, you have a 3-year-old who's in a hospital so much, but you're talking to a mom of a 6-year-old who's further along in that journey, and a mom who's 10 years old and 20 years old, and they can see the future, because I think so many parents can't see the future for their child, and I think
I even had, so I had a family that I helped, that the man, who's now a young man with a craniofacial difference, had his vocal cords damaged in the last surgery, couldn't express, was isolated during COVID, and no longer is served by the pediatric craniofacial team. So care was an issue. And the degree of isolation of that is terrible. And it's a simple thing that I said was, join a support group, and you can type in or make yourself understood, because on Zoom, people will hear you. And just that simple thing made a huge difference, even with, different medical problems remaining, and different, like, these problems don't just go away like that. They're, a lifelong thing that you may have another question when you're 34, right? And you don't know any 34-year-olds. So anyway, just being able to connect him to a group, that was awesome.
Yeah. Can you talk about a mentor support network that has been crucial in your journey at this point?
Yeah, holy cow. I have the best mentor ever. That's Lazer's godmother. And if I myself had not had strong arms outside of our nuclear family to catch us, and if Lazer had not had those strong arms, I literally don't know where we would be. I think it would be, we would be in a much different place. And we were just talking about that yesterday, because the impact of the isolation, and it's like a pressure cooker. It's a kind of a pressure cooker. And sometimes parents, any parent just is not, like, they didn't come in with the skills necessary for the challenge in front of them. Like, that's like this almost the definition of parenthood, right? So, this mentor is Anahata Graceland, and she changed my whole life by making so much available. And even though she hasn't had craniofacial differences, she has had different genetic difficulties in her life. So just being like, I've been there. Or listen, let me tell you this. You got to do the Oreo cookie approach. You got to do joy on the front end, then the difficult thing in the middle, and joy on the other side. And since you got these appointments coming up, schedule it. Schedule the zoo schedule the appointment, schedule the kayaking or whatever.
Right.
To have somebody like that this is the other part of my inspiration of being an advocate. I am blessed beyond belief to have had that. So there's nothing like that, I tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lazer, who do you think of as your greatest mentor and advocate? If you have one.
I would honestly answer the same. My godmother Anahata has been a very wonderful close friend, and like I'm forgetting the word, of course, but avid. There you go, avid supporter, and like being able to relate to a lot of situations. Interestingly enough, even though our cases are very different,
Mm-hmm.
and also just being a support to remind myself of who I am in the more challenging times.
So
That's a
looking at
really important thing because, like, when you have a lot of medical intrusion, I'm going to call it, like,
right,
and you're trying to level up at your own skills and abilities to navigate because you know that, from here you're going to have a better outcome. You're sort of in a rabbit hole. And if you're too far down the rabbit hole and you forget your regular life and what makes you joyful and what gives you strength, you can get lost there. And that's one of the things having a mentor and having a community brings is like, what what do you do to enjoy, or
right,
just focusing, after all, golden heart is just one sliver of life. It's a big sliver and an important sliver,
right,
but um there's all kinds of big excellent life out there. And
right,
part of the balancing act is to just be in the larger excellence of life as much as possible and be really good at the stuff you need to do in the medical and
right.
system.
Liz, I don't know if you feel this way, but I always, when I go into schools and speaking to kids, I always think about like how my facial difference is just one small piece of who I am. That I'm so much more than my facial difference. I don't know if you've had that, but I really have come to realize that I'm just that's just it's a at times it's been a big piece, but it's I think as we get older, it becomes this, we are so much more than our facial difference.
Mm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, looking ahead, what are your hopes and dreams for the future in the craniofacial and rare disease communities, and what change do you hope to see?
One of my hopes is that I could come in and join more in with the craniofacial like groups that you guys have.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though like I've done pretty well over here, we don't really have in-person support
Right.
over on the West Coast as much as you guys do on the East Coast. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm really excited to be coming to the uh, races walk or the
Faces for
5K.
faces.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to come and meet a whole bunch of you guys and come closer in with my people. And one of the things I hope to see more in the future as a whole is see just more of us craniofacially different people be really successful with whatever they're wanting to do.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing media, seeing like models, seeing actors. The one craniofacial actor or difference having actor that I've seen is David Matarazzo, right?
Right.
And I didn't even realize he had a facial difference at first until my mom pointed it
Right.
out. Um, and then I'm like, oh my god, one of us, one
Yeah.
of us, yay!
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I hope to see more of that because that was such a big part of feeling alone was not seeing anyone.
Right.
So community and having more of us out there is like great.
Yeah. I feel like
And like
we've got
that
a lot of work to
podcast,
do, but we're
Dina.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Like this podcast.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, I was so touched when I learned about this podcast and just started seeing different people sharing their experiences.
Right.
It's almost unspeakable. Just seeing people and having it be normalized part of life.
Right.
It's precious.
Yeah, and it's also always really wonderful to see like what interests that uh, people have outside of their craniofacial difference as well.
Right. Right.
Because that's always a reminder to me too that you are so much more than your difference, like you were saying earlier. And seeing like I watched the one you did with Naomi and Aaliyah,
Uh-huh.
and just learning like what they're doing outside of having the craniofacial difference is like really wonderful.
Thank you. So last two questions that I love to ask. So what would you each say to your younger self, knowing what you know now?
You got this.
I would say it's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd say.
Okay.
It's like when I say you got this, it's like keep the faith, because you can't really see what is ahead. The doctors are going to portray certain things, and unfortunately, psychologically, they're like this limitation, that limitation, this
Right.
abnormality, and this lack of function, and that, these difficult,
Right.
can't reduce a person to that. And it's actually, you have to know that they have to cast it that way so that they can apply their measures of remedy. But that
Mm-hmm.
is not define your child or
Right.
you or whatever. So keeping the faith is knowing that you will know more than you do now. You will get better at navigating than you are now.
Mm-hmm.
You will
Right.
use the information to make a better outcome, and you will change the outcome, and you can totally defy odds knowing that. So
Right.
that's what keep the faith is, and stay connected with people.
Mm-hmm.
So who do you see when you look in the mirror today? You can say it in one word, one sentence, a thought.
I see someone who is almost done with the major part of the surgery part of their life, and that's something that I'm really excited for.
Mm-hmm.
So every new surgery right now for me is leading up to like the quote unquote final
Done.
surgery, but I probably will need a couple more in the
Mm-hmm.
future sometime. I don't know when. But the main bulk of my surgery days are almost over, which I'm really excited about. I see someone who's looking forward to what's ahead. Because right now I don't know, but I'm exploring my options, and that's really exciting.
Love that. Love that. So thank you, Amy and Lazer, for sharing your story. I am so inspired by your advocacy, your passion. I mean, how you have, Amy, advocated for Lazer, and Lazer, how you've advocated for yourself, and what you're both doing. And so I can't wait to see what the future holds for both of you, actually. And I really appreciate that you have shared so much, because I know that you're going to help so many individuals who might be struggling with their own self-esteem or just the overwhelmingness of this medical journey. So thank you to both of you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Dina.
thank you very much for having us on.
Thank you. So Amy and Lazer are inspirations to me and everyone they meet. Everyone has a story, and I'm hopeful that by sharing stories like these, we can create a kinder world. For more than 70 years, myFace has been dedicated to changing the faces and transforming the lives of children and adults with facial differences by providing access to holistic comprehensive care, education, resources, and support that pave the way for better outcomes. To learn more, please visit myface.org. If you would like to learn more about the myFace support groups so that you can connect with others in the craniofacial community, please visit myface.org/online-groups. Be sure to subscribe to myFace, myStory on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube to get notified of our next episode. If you'd like to receive email reminders of new episodes, sign up at myface.org/mystory. That's myface.org/mystory. Thank you for joining us for this episode of myFace, myStory. Remember, it takes courage to share your story, so be brave and speak out.